The biggest thing to know is that milk and dairy products are safe as long as they're pasteurized.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Farmhouse. I'm Candace Wierzbowski,
I'm Stephanie Spiker.
and the voice you just heard was Jayne Sebright. Jayne is the executive director of the Center for Dairy Excellence. She also works with the Dairy Excellence Foundation, and today we're going to be talking to her about the dairy industry, but also about something that is currently going on in the dairy industry that you may have heard about, regardless of whether you are in agriculture or if you're more on the consumer side of things.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking to Jayne about what is being called bovine influenza A. Now, it's possible you've never heard it referred to as that. That is basically the cow version of avian influenza, or bird flu, if you want to get really basic with it. And I'm just going to give a very quick, try and condense 2 years into a quick backstory.
Good luck.
This current outbreak of avian influenza started in 2022 and has kind of ebbed and flowed since then, with birds throughout the US getting the disease. Unfortunately, in poultry, it is very, very deadly. So if a flock tests positive for the disease, they have to be depopulated. Now, just recently, some dairy cows, I think initially in Texas, tested positive for avian influenza, and then some cows in other states have as well. But the reason they changed the name from avian influenza to bovine influenza A is because it reacts in cows very differently than it reacts in birds. And for the most part, cows just kind of get a cold. Maybe they feel under the weather for a week or so, and then they're pretty much fine. So they changed it, started calling it bovine influenza A in cattle, just to differentiate the two, because high path avian influenza, the one in poultries, is, it's very deadly for poultries, while bovine, not so much. So throughout this episode, we're going to refer to it as both bovine influenza, HPAI, avian influenza. It's all the same thing, basically, just different animals. So hopefully that all helps you out. If you want more information, we have so much avian influenza information and news on our website at lancasterfarming.com. If you just go there and type in avian influenza, you will get the whole backlog from now till back in 2022 with all of our coverage. So we have lots of info on that. But we're going to mostly be talking about it in dairy today. And please stick around and listen, because there's a lot of good information coming up.
So Jayne, welcome to the Farmhouse. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be joining you.
Great. Well, we're going to start off with the first question that we ask everyone, and that is, did you always want to work in agriculture?
That's a really good question. So actually, no. I grew up on a dairy farm in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. I always loved the cows, but never really loved I never really loved working on the farm. I just always felt like I always loved writing and always loved I always loved writing. I was a writer from very, very young age, and I always felt like I belonged working somewhere else because I loved writing, and you really don't write a lot on a farm. But then when I became dairy princess, right out of high school, I would learn that that PR was a really important field within agriculture, and that I could use my writing skills to work in public relations. And that's how I kind of turned and went into agricultural science and communications. Then I also met my husband a year later, who is actually from a farm in East Berlin. And I ended up on that farm, and I actually do love being on the farm now. I love milking, and being part of the farm. But when I was younger, I always saw myself somewhere else.
One of the reasons that we wanted to have you on here today is to talk about a current issue in the dairy industry, and that is bovine influenza A. There's been some misinformation out there about bovine influenza and how it might affect dairy products and ultimately consumers. So what do people outside of the industry need to understand, and how might they be affected by all of this?
I would actually say I don't think people outside the industry will be affected very much. The biggest thing to know is that milk and dairy products are safe as long as they're pasteurized, regardless of any HPAI incident. It's actually the virus is actually killed through the pasteurization process. So milk and dairy products remain safe. FDA has actually tested hundreds of samples of cheese, cottage cheese, and milk products and has found no active virus in any of those products. So pasteurized milk, pasteurized dairy products are safe. Um, I would, if you do buy raw milk is is approved in Pennsylvania from certified licensed dairies that are licensed to sell raw milk. If you do buy raw milk, make sure you're buying from a farm that has biosecurity protocols in place. Right now, the other big thing that people outside our industry need to know is HPAI in dairy cattle is not in Pennsylvania. Right now, we have not had a confirmed case, so it's not an issue for anyone outside the industry. Inside the industry, I would encourage all farmers to be ramping up their biosecurity protocols if HPAI would come to Pennsylvania, but it's an animal health issue. It's not a food safety issue. So for people outside the industry, just know that it's something that farmers are dealing with among many other things that they're dealing with day in and day out, and it's a concern for your farmer neighbors and friends.
So, obviously you talk to farmers pretty much every day. Like you have a pretty good, I think, grasp on the pulse of the industry. And so overall, what is the concern level for dairy farmers about bovine influenza A? Like, is it something that they're really worried about, or are they feeling kind of like, you know what, we have biosecurity in place, like we can get through this?
I would say that HPAI is a caution for dairy farmers. I don't think it's keeping them up late at night right now. If anything's keeping them up late at night right now, it's getting corn and soybeans and planted and all of their spring work done amidst the rain showers. But I think it's something that they're aware of, that they're concerned about. The farmers that are very proactive have made sure their biosecurity protocols are up to speed, they've ramped up their monitoring of who's coming in and out of their farm, and they've um, ramped up their awareness around how cattle are moving in and out of their farm. If they are moving cattle in their farm, they're making sure they know where those cattle are coming from. They're making sure that they're healthy and they're not bringing anything into their farm that they don't want. But I would say that it's something that they're aware of and they're cautious about, but it's not something that's keeping them up late at night. They're just aware of. The good thing or the positive thing about HPAI and dairy cattle is it's not lethal. It's something that usually gets through the herd in 10, they say that usually the recovery period is around 10 to 14 days. So if it comes into a herd, it's something that's manageable. They need to work through. The cows are not. It's not like it is in poultry. They're coming out of it. They're recovering for the most part, and um, it's something that's manageable. So, like I said, they're cautious. They're aware. They're ramping up biosecurity, but it's not something that um, is keeping them up late at night. Now, for a dairy that has dairy and poultry, the concern is much higher because if you would bring in cows into your farm, your dairy farm, and you would have a poultry facility next door, if that HPAI would spread from the dairy to the poultry, then it does become a very serious situation because those birds would have to be depopulated, and
Sure.
that's nothing anybody wants.
Yeah.
Right. Right. All right. So then some some good news, or fairly good news, I guess, for the folks in the dairy industry. That's good to hear. So we're going to pivot away then from bovine influenza. But if anyone listening wants to hear or learn more about it, we are covering it on lancasterfarming.com. If you go to our website and search bovine influenza, or really probably just influenza, you will find articles about what is going on. But moving along, Jayne, could you tell us about the Center for Dairy Excellence and the Dairy Excellence Foundation? How did they come into being, and what do they do?
The Center for Dairy Excellence was started in 2004. It actually came out of what was called the Pennsylvania Dairy Task Force. At that point, we saw a downturn in our dairy industry in Pennsylvania, and some of the elected leaders in the state, the governor at the time, and some representatives and senators wanted to address how to pivot that, or turn that curve around. They formed the Pennsylvania Dairy Task Force, and out of that came the Center for Dairy Excellence. The center's role is really to serve as a small business development center for the dairy sector in Pennsylvania. We serve as a catalyst to bring together folks across the industry supply chain, to address the opportunities and the bottlenecks, and make sure that we're looking at all the issues and finding solutions for those issues. And then at the individual business level, we offer support through grants and resources and programming to help small businesses, both dairy farms and other businesses, thrive in today's dairy sector. The Dairy Excellence Foundation is actually our sister organization. I always say the center is focused on today, so we focus on resources, programming, and grants that can help our farmers and our industry today, where our Dairy Excellence Foundation is actually focused on tomorrow. It's a 501c3, entirely privately funded through donations and grants, to bring scholarships, curriculum, internships, and programming to that next generation of dairy, whether it's dairy farmers, people working in the dairy industry, or even dairy consumers. That was created in 2010 as a way to develop a source of long-term support for our dairy industry. So I actually work for both organizations. We have two separate boards of directors. The Center for Dairy Excellence has a board that's comprised of a cross-section of dairy, and the Dairy Excellence Foundation has a board of directors of folks who are supporting and benefiting from the Dairy Excellence Foundation.
Great. And it's exciting to hear. We talk a lot on this podcast about the next generation of farmers, about how, the current average age of a farmer is probably higher than I think your average industry. So it's wonderful to hear whenever there's efforts anywhere that will benefit, the farmers of tomorrow, and bringing more people into the fold.
Yeah, we actually do a lot on both sides of what we do. The center, we focus a lot on transition and helping farms transition to that next generation. I actually just did some research, and the latest census says that I think it's over 35% of our farmers in Pennsylvania, or over all of our farmers, not just dairy, are over the age of 65, where only 13% are below the age of 35. So what that says is that at least 35% of our farms absolutely have to transition within the next generation, or in the next 10 years, to keep that farm sustainable. And transitions are more and more challenging as you talk about the capital investment, the complexity of the business. So we offer grants and consulting to help those farms navigate that. And then, like I said, everything we do on the foundation side is really focused on that next generation.
That's great. For anyone listening who's interested in any of these resources, we will have links to the center and the foundation in the information on this episode.
Yeah. So I know, you mentioned the center began in 2004, and I read in your bio on the website that you've pretty much been part of it since the beginning in 2004. So how has the center evolved since, those early days?
I actually I was on the Pennsylvania Dairy Task Force from 2004 through 2006, and then I was actually hired in 2006. At that point, it actually just started with one director and one person from the center side and a state employee. Started out as mostly focused on farm focused programs. We had some grants, handful of grants, and farmer resources. And then it's really grown. Today we have a staff of 9. And like I said, we work for both the foundation and the center. The center today has a budget of over 2 million, really, with over 700,000 annually going directly to farmers through our grant programs, whether that's our reinvestment grants or our consulting grants. And then we do a lot of work. We've taken on a climate smart grant. We've taken on value added grants from other organizations. We really try to find grants across both federal, regional, and state level that we can apply for and then turn around and offer our farmers more support and assistance. So we've gotten value added grants from the Northeast Dairy Business Innovation Center. We've gotten the Climate Smart grant through Penn State and the USDA. And then we leverage our Commonwealth funds to really provide a wide menu of resources, programming, and grants to our farmers. So the center has really grown. We not only offer resources and programming to Pennsylvania farmers, but some of our grants have allowed us to go outside Pennsylvania and offer resources to farmers in neighboring states. And even we're starting to work with West Virginia on a grant next year. So continue to grow in what we can offer to our farmers. We also in 2010 started working more with the processors when we merged with the Pennsylvania dairy stakeholders. So we offer a lot of resources and programming to our processing community as well.
Great. I feel like I've been familiar with the Center for Dairy Excellence for quite a while now, but I don't think I even knew half of the broad things that you guys have available. So that's cool. I definitely did not know you worked in states outside of Pennsylvania. So it's cool to hear how much you have.
We just started doing that within the last 3 years. The Northeast Dairy Business Innovation Center up in Vermont was started, I think, in 2019, and we've been working a lot with them. And we've been able to get a couple of their grants coming through our organization so that we can offer funding to farmers in Pennsylvania, as well as Maryland, Virginia, Delaware, New Jersey, and Ohio. So, and those grants have been value added grants. And then just this past year, we're working with the University of West Virginia on a grant they received from USDA. And in the coming year, we'll be rolling out some programming and grants to West Virginia farmers as well. Now our foundation, our Dairy Excellence Foundation, is actually worldwide. All of our programs for that next generation, all of our curriculum, that is offered across the country and across the world. There are online programs, so anyone can access them. And we have over 1.2 million students benefiting from our foundation worldwide. Our Adopt a Cow program is in all 50 states, and our Dairy Leaders of Tomorrow program is in all but 3 states nationwide.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
I love the idea of Adopt a Cow as well. That's just amazing.
For those of us who cannot own a cow.
Yeah.
And Adopt a Cow, actually, I always love telling this story. It started in 2011. I was actually, when I was hired by the Center for Dairy Excellence, I was working in communications, but I was also hired to develop some kind of program where we could bring students who couldn't get onto a farm. We could somehow connect them to a farm, whether that's through, farm tour visits or whatever. And what we realized very quickly is that it's very, very hard to get every student across the country, and especially those in urban and suburban areas, out on a farm. So we created Discover Dairy, which is a curriculum series that builds on science, math, and reading standards to show students how dairy farmers contribute to the world. So it has lessons and programming all around showing kids what happens on a dairy farm. So I was, neck deep in developing Discover Dairy when my son, who's now actually a senior in college, came home from second grade, and he was all excited because his classroom had just adopted a jaguar from the rainforest, I think.
That
Okay.
sounds
And
amazing.
and their whole classroom was like centered around this jaguar. There was themes. The whole classroom was a theme. They were going to do lessons, and they were going to learn about the rainforest. I think it was the rainforest through the jaguar. And I was like, well, if your classroom can adopt a jaguar, then they can adopt a cow. So then at that point, Discover Dairy was still very small. And so I decided, well, I'm going to offer Adopt a Cow and see. I was going to use calves from my farm because we do have a small dairy farm, and see how many classrooms signed up. I think for the first 4 or 5 years, we had like 100 classrooms who adopted 4 or 5 calves that were born on our farm. And it was just like this side thing I did. And then in 2019, I hired Brittany Snyder, who loves sharing dairy stories. She's a former state dairy princess, just loves, loves, loves connecting with consumers. And she really started like taking a hold of Adopt a Cow and running with it, really promoting it. And then 2020 hit, and it was the COVID year, and suddenly Adopt a Cow went viral. It just when we were opening enrollment, it was just all over every social media platform there was. It just went viral, and we had 70,000 classrooms
Oh my
enrolled
gosh.
in that year. And we were sitting there, and she was like, no, I don't think we should turn it off. I think we should keep it open. So then at the end of that enrollment period, we had 70,000.
That's still a lot.
That is.
And we were like, how are we going to make this work with 70,000 classrooms? So then we started reaching out to regional dairy checkoffs. American Dairy Association Northeast has been a longtime supporter of our foundation and of Discover Dairy. They were actually a partner of ours when we first started the program. And we asked them, are there other regional checkoffs you think would be interested in helping us make this program work nationwide? And today we have 14 of the 16 dairy checkoff programs across the country supporting our Adopt a Cow program and Discover Dairy. And we have 33 farms nationwide who contribute. There's farms, I think a couple states have more than one farm, but there's 33 farms nationwide. So I can't tell you how many different states they're in. Brittany probably could. But who provide calves for us each year. And then we open up enrollment. It's open now, May 1st. It'll open till September 15th. Classrooms can sign up. And then October, they'll find out who their calf is. Each farm usually provides 2 to 3 calves. And we try to match classrooms with a farmer and a calf in their state. And then all year long, they get to hear, they get an update or a lesson or a video or something every month. So then all throughout the year, they're watching this calf grow, they're tracking it on a growth chart, they're learning about how that calf's fed, how they're taken care of, what happens to them on their farm, and also what the farmer does. And it's just, I always say, like when I was growing up on the farm, our second grade class always came out and toured our dairy farm. That's something my family, where I grew up, still does today. They host a lot of school tours. And I still have classmates when I go to reunions who say how they remember coming to our farm when they were in second grade, and how that left such an impression on them. And I always think that those kids that adopted that calf for that year long, that will be something that they remember years from now, even if they don't end up, which most of them won't, end up connected to the dairy industry at all. They will remember where their milk comes from because they remember learning about that calf and that calf's mom and the farmer that took care of that calf, and how much care and attention went into producing that milk. So I just think that the Adopt a Cow program has such an impact on our next generation because they are learning about firsthand about the care and stewardship that goes into producing the milk that they drink and the dairy products that they eat.
Wow. I love that so much. I love
Fantastic.
like just the sheer number too of kids that you're able to reach through this program. And you know
It does
that
it does. It's actually required our staff. I mean, we've actually grown, I think, 2 employees in the last 3 years. A lot of that is because Adopt a Gal has grown to many of us help work and support that program. It takes a lot of time, but I think it's so worth it. And Brittany, who's in charge of it, has just done so much to add creativity and energy, and the teachers run with it. We have teachers that have, entire billboards. There's schools that have entire billboards dedicated to their Adopt a Calf, and they do videos, and they have weekly lessons. It's such a cool program, and I love it because it started out. I have nothing to do with how much it's grown. That I really attribute to Brittany, but I just love that it was an idea that started with my second grader coming home from school.
yeah, that's so cool. And honestly, I mean, I feel like educating kids about what actually happens on a dairy farm is so important because I think, there are still a lot of misconceptions that consumers have about dairy farming and dairy farmers and the whole process. So, if you could just talk directly to the consumers that might be listening, like what are some of the biggest misconceptions you see about the dairy industry?
Yeah, so yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. When my first job out of college, I worked for Checkoff, and we did promotions in inner city Philadelphia. And we did a school assembly, and we'd always start out by asking the kids where milk comes from. And most of them thought milk came from the refrigerator. So I think there's a lot of consumers who don't even know where their milk comes from, because those kids that in second grade that I asked that question, they're adults now. Um, and there's just this huge gap between consumers and farmers. So unfortunately, when consumers hear, some of the negative rhetoric about farming and about where food comes from, they I always say, in the absence of information, there's misinformation, and they'll believe that. And what I would say is all farmers, whether they're large or small, whether they're organic or they're conventional, care about their animals. They care about the food they produce. The milk and dairy products, especially, are tested 17 times from the time that it leaves the farm till the time it ends up on the grocery shelf. It's one of the highest. It's the highest quality, very safe. Consumers do not have to worry about the food that they're buying from the local farmer because there is so much care and stewardship and quality double checking that goes into that product. Farmers also very much care about their animals. We do a lot to make sure that cows are kept comfortable. That's a lot of what we teach in Adopt a Cow. We talk about how cows get to sleep on really soft beds, whether it's sand bedding or sawdust or composting, or it's out on pasture. Cows are kept very comfortable. They have fans and misters and ventilation in the summertime to keep them cool. Oftentimes, like, you can be outside in a 95-degree day and you walk into that barn and it's 20 degrees cooler. Farms are also families. Too often you hear about factory farming, and I don't care what size dairy that is, especially in Pennsylvania. It's a family farm. I grew up on a dairy farm where I have four brothers, a brother and three sisters. And when we were growing up, our farm was like, 100 to 200 cows. Today, that farm is 1,200 cows. It grew so that all of my siblings could be part of that farm. And they're there with their children. My dad and mom are still part of it. And they're working that farm day in and day out. And even the employees on that farm, it's like a big family. They all really much care. And I would say there are no factory farms, especially in Pennsylvania. And you can, whether you're buying your milk from the local farm market or you're buying your milk from the grocery store, you're buying it from a farmer and an industry that very much cares about that product.
Yeah. 17 times. I didn't know that. See,
I didn't either.
learned so much doing this podcast. I feel like every guest has taught me a little something that I didn't know.
That is true. All right. So obviously, like we said earlier, bovine influenza, it's taking up a lot of thought space and headlines about the dairy industry right now. But that doesn't mean that the industry isn't continuing to operate and innovate. So what's going on in dairy right now that you think is particularly interesting or worth discussing?
I think there's a lot of both farmers and processors looking at ways to innovate their product to meet consumer demand where they are. Obviously, if you look at product trends over the past 10 to 20 years, you've seen this steady decline in fluid milk consumption, and you've seen other products really growing. Cheese sales, butter sales, yogurt sales have grown dramatically. You've also seen an uptick in these nutraceutical foods, protein drinks, those kind of things, and a lot of them are milk-based. And I think we're seeing a lot of processors and farmers looking at how they can capture a share of that. We actually at the center have seen a lot of farmers looking at the value-added business and figuring out how they can capture opportunity by getting closer to the consumer, or whether it's, selling artisan cheese or bottling their own milk or making yogurt or ice cream or other products. We've also seen a lot of farms looking at innovation to create efficiencies, improve cow comfort on their farms. We have a lot of farms that are adopting, robotic technology, whether it's rotary parlors that use robotic technology to prep cows, whether it's we have cows with activity monitors so that they're actually sensing that cow's temperature, their body, all of their, so that right away if a cow's not feeling good, you can take care of that cow better. Other innovations on the farm, we have automation and temperature setting on the barn so that curtains go up or down, misters go on, fans go on. So just a whole lot of technology and innovation on the farm itself. And then with the whole climate change, I think dairy is really looking at that as an opportunity to demonstrate our stewardship and also to embrace the whole idea around using dairy farms for renewable energy purposes, mitigating methane emissions by implementing strategies both on the feed side and on the manure side to recycle and reuse and offer renewable energy sources through the dairy. So there's a lot of interesting things going on along those lines.
That's exciting.
Yeah. I feel like you kind of already answered this, but I'll ask anyway. You mentioned a lot of the tech innovations, and I think a lot of people sometimes still look at farming as like a very old school profession, but there is so much technology that is being used in farming. So For you, what are you seeing that are some of like the coolest tech innovations that you've seen on dairy farms?
Yeah, I actually already did mention some of those. Probably a lot of farmers right now are looking into some kind of activity monitors. There's a lot of different brands out there, but what the activity monitor allows the farmer to do is, like when you had, like on our farm, we have 50 cows. So I know every single one of those cows. I can tell by looking at them if they're not feeling good. I have a really good feel of what's going on with those 50 cows. But when you're on a cow with, and even on a 50 cow herd, like the activity monitors would be helpful. But definitely on a larger farm, when you have 500 or 1,000 cows, those activity monitors are like pedometers.
I think
So
someone
that
called them Fitbit for
Fitbit for
cows.
yeah,
cows
Yeah.
is what we've had someone say.
Yeah, Fitbits for cows. So, like a cow is they're ruminant animals, so there's a whole lot of activity going on in their stomachs. It's called rumination. Those activity monitors can monitor whether their rumen's working well and the rumination is working well. They can measure whether their temperature is high. They can measure how much they're moving, so that you can really get a good handle. You can provide that individual cow, and exactly what's going on with each one of those cows at any given time. And then the whole idea around robotics, robotics on farms, whether it's in the milking parlor, in the feeding area, or just overall things that are automated, that it minimizes, because labor is expensive. It continues to be more expensive, and it's hard for farms to compete with other industries in getting a labor force. So anything you can automate through robotics or automation is really beneficial on a farm. And there's a lot of cool things going on in that area right now.
Great. Well, it's May now, but June Dairy Month is almost here. How are you planning on celebrating it? And do you have any recommendations on how others might celebrate?
Well, at the center, we're actually launching a campaign called It's Local Goodness That Matters. We're offering dairy farmers the opportunity to order yard signs. We figure there's going to be a lot of yard signs out this year, and we wanted
Okay.
a really positive yard sign for dairy farmers to order that says local goodness, or it's goodness that matters locally. And then there's actually a QR code on it where you can go to our website and see what dairy is worth in each county across Pennsylvania. So we're going to be launching that Goodness That Matters Locally campaign. We have rack cards and posters available. We're also working with the Department of Community and Tourism and the Department of Ag to help with the Pennsylvania Ice Cream Trail. So I
Nice.
would encourage anyone to get out there and take advantage of the Pennsylvania Ice Cream Trail, visit some of the wonderful local creameries across the state. This year, if you visit 10 creameries, you can get a t-shirt. And if you
Ooh.
visit 5 creameries, you can get an ice cream scoop. We help with prize fulfillment on that. So that's my recommendation. Go out and visit a creamery, go on the ice cream trail. Also, there's a lot of wonderful local dairy promotional events that the Princess groups and others do across the state. Just get out and take advantage of June Dairy Month to learn a little bit more about the farmers in your neighborhood, or if you're in an urban area, the farms that are in the rural areas of Pennsylvania.
Awesome. I feel like we do not need any encouragement to get out to the
Yeah.
local
I mean,
creameries.
I love ice cream and I love free t-shirts, so sounds like I'm gonna have to hit
know,
up
I
10
know.
different places.
Sounds good. I'm on the trail.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. All right. So, in honor of the upcoming June Dairy Month, we have a set of dairy speed round questions for you, just based on your dairy preferences.
There are no wrong answers.
No. Okay. So, starting off, what's your favorite kind of ice cream?
Coffee.
All right. What's your favorite kind of cheese?
Any of the artisan cheeses out there that are made by Pennsylvania are artisan cheesemakers. They do a great job and they're really wonderful cheeses.
Agreed. What's your favorite flavored milk?
Uh, orange, orange cream,
Nice. I don't think I've ever tried that one. What's your favorite breed of dairy cow?
red and white Holsteins.
Okay, and last one, what is your favorite dairy recipe?
We make something that's called cheesy hash browns it's like a frozen hash browns, sour cream, cheddar cheese, condensed chicken soup. It's really, really good and it's really, really rich.
I'm
Sounds
in.
so delicious.
I love cheese. I love potatoes. I'm in.
Yeah, everything you just said
It
sounds so
sounds
good.
great.
Yeah, it's really good.
All right. So that brings us to our final question, and we ask this to everybody, and that is, what does being a woman in ag mean to you?
So, as a mother of three boys, I think that all of us, whether we're male or female, need to step up and be willing to do something, even if it scares us. So, one time I had written an article about what would you do if you weren't afraid. And as a woman in agriculture, there are plenty of meetings that I walk into where I'm of one or two women in the room full of 50 men. Um, but I believe we each, regardless of who we each bring something unique and special to the conversation, and we all need to be willing um, to do whatever it is, regardless of what we're afraid of. We need to be willing to step up, to get involved, to be leaders, and to be contributors. I love this industry that we're working in, and I think it's so important. We do not have enough land and resources to feed our world in the next 30 years. So it's going to be all up to all of us to bring our brains, bring our ingenuity, bring our creativity into this industry so that we can continue to feed the world. And whether we're women or men, we all need to be willing to do that.
Excellent.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jayne, for joining us at the farmhouse. We really appreciate having you on.
Thank you. Thanks for asking me.
Well, it's great to hear from Jayne. I think she did a great job clearing up some concerns and perhaps misconceptions about what's going on with bovine influenza, how it might be affecting people within the dairy industry, how it might be affecting consumers who, might be worried about the safety of their milk or cheese or whatnot. So I appreciate her taking the time to do that for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
But to end things on a light note, just like we did with Jayne, I thought it would be fun for us to participate in the dairy speed round. So, Steph, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. What is your favorite kind of ice cream?
Moose tracks.
Mine is probably similar. I kind of like anything that's chocolatey and peanut buttery, and I actually just recently learned that Pennsylvania Secretary of Ag Russell Redding feels the same way. So he and I guess, are due for some kind of ice cream meeting
hangout
where we eat the same kind of ice cream.
I would love to eat ice cream with Russell Redding. So if you're listening to this podcast, Secretary Redding, we would love to eat ice cream with you.
All right. What's your favorite kind of cheese?
Oh, this one's really hard for me, but I've loved it since I was a little kid, so I'm just going to stick with it, and that is Munster cheese.
Nice. I love anything that's really stinky, so any kind of good blue cheese is going to work for me, like a Roquefort.
You're on record on this podcast and on our TikTok talking about your love for stinky cheese. So
stinky cheese and Highland cows. It's the two things I care most about in this world. All right. What's your favorite flavored milk?
For me, it has to be chocolate. There's nothing that compares.
Me too. All right. What's your favorite breed of dairy cow?
I love a Jersey. They have the big eyes and the long eyelashes, and I just think they're really pretty.
I like Guernseys. I think they're very cute too.
My dad's a fan of Guernseys. That's what he milked growing up.
Oh, that golden milk.
The golden Guernsey.
All right, and what is your favorite dairy recipe?
This one, I think I cook a lot with dairy, so this one's really hard, but I will say the chocolate cake recipe that's been passed down from like my mom and her, I believe her dad's mom initially. Sorry, Mom, if I got that wrong. The recipe for that cake, of course, has butter, but it also uses sour cream to keep it really, really moist.
Nice.
And to me, it's just the best chocolate cake ever.
I'm gonna go with just a standard basic chocolate chip cookie. They're one of my favorite things to bake. Obviously they include butter. So yeah, that's what I'm going with. Maybe not the most like exciting or exotic option, but
I
I'm
love that
sticking
we
with it.
both went with dessert, because like,
Come on.
we actually talk all the time right after we finish recording one of these podcast episodes about getting a little treat. So we love little treats and we love dessert.
We do. And in fact, I think we're due for a little treat now. So we're going to wrap this up.
We're going to wrap this up because we want to go get a little treat. I hope we're going off the rails, guys. Just kidding. All right. We're good. This episode started pretty seriously and we have devolved, but I really hope you all enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. I hope any of your concerns about the milk supply or bovine influenza have been a little cleared since we got to talk to Jayne about it. So thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed it, give it a rating, give it a review, give us a follow, all of the things.
If you have any questions or thoughts, you can reach us at FarmHouse at lancasterfarming.com. We're also available on social media at Lancaster Farming.
Yeah, give us a follow, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all of the things. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I always forget to say our names at the end. I'm Stephanie.
I'm Candace.
This is the FarmHouse, and we'll talk to you later.
Bye.
This episode of the FarmHouse is copyright 2024 by Lancaster Farming Newspaper, part of the Steinman Communications family.
It was written by Stephanie Spiker and Candace Wierzbowski. It was produced by Eric Herlock and Matt Lee. The music you have heard throughout the episode is courtesy of Tin Bird Shadow.